let's get right into it. Do you want multiple characters in NGS in New Genesis? That would vary. In the technical sense and in terms of a lot of benefits, it's not really there. I don't know if SEGA plans to flesh this out a bit more or add more things to it, but as of this moment and as of this recording, there's not a lot of perks for having a bunch of characters. Now, there are some benefits still, and I'll address them in a few minutes or a few seconds. But in the long run, especially if I had to compare stuff from the base PSO2 and how if you have so many characters, you can get so much Meseta and all these other things, that does not... Some of it works in New Genesis, some of it does not, and I'll talk about them in this video. If you want to see a certain point, you can look in the description for those time skips. Let me talk about the benefits. The one factual thing you can see in-game with having multiple characters is the character storage. Every character that you bring into New Genesis, they have their own character storage, which can be used to your advantage. When it comes to some of these other points, it's more of a gamble. Granted that it is hinted at, especially with how they are still doing something that I've seen back on base PSO2, which is giving certain items per character. An example of this is when I log into PSO2 with a new character, when I looked over to receive certain login items or certain other things, receive some rewards and whatnot, they do have their own section where it's for that character, and when I swap between some of my characters, you can see that I was able to obtain a free salon pass for these characters. So make sure you pick that up. But if they do something like that, there's a chance, a high chance for that concept to work with class reset passes for New Genesis. At the moment, we don't have as many of those passes, and you would need to most likely buy it or get a new skill or get a skill tree if you want to try to do this and this. But the thing is, those passes are going to be crucial, especially if you want to play or reset or fix your tree, and that is something to note. You may want to have a couple characters in New Genesis. It's not going to hurt you if you have a few of them just waiting in New Genesis and all that. Other than that, the third concept of mine in terms of benefits is just gambling on the fact that they might change stuff down the line, and it's gonna be beneficial to have a bunch of characters or a few characters. The last thing I will address, it's more of like how many characters you have, and if you plan to just make a bunch of characters to do this and this in relations to classes. Now, you can obviously use one character to play all classes. You can easily switch to and fro. It's not going to be as bad. However, depending on a very specific build you have and a certain playstyle you want to emphasize on, you might want to have different characters for that. For example, with the amount of points you can get right now, you wouldn't be able to get all the perks from the skill tree. As of this recording, I have 20 points I can spend here and there for most of these classes, but I can't get everything on the skill tree, so I have to choose wisely. Because of this sort of limitation, I can't really use one of the characters that I may want to toy around with to really maximize a certain playstyle, or, you know, it depends on what I'm doing. So if I had to take an example, let's say one of my characters, they're a gunner main, and I'm using Force as a way to regen PP very quickly, especially if I get certain perks that isn't related to like the rod or whatever perks that whatever perks that Force can benefit off of. But when I decide to try to level up Force, and let's say I want to play with the rod, I'm not able to do that because of what I already did, because I already have that character was a gunner main, but since I swapped over and I want to play with rod now, I can't really do that unless I have a pass or have another skill tree or whatnot. And this will ultimately depend on if you have the ACs, the money to try to get another skill tree, or if you want to get another pass and reset it all. It will vary depending on the situation. So if you have multiple characters, that can tackle that problem. But this isn't a benefit, this is more of something you might want to consider. It can be a pro and con move. It just depends on once again, how you want to play the game and how you want to execute things. But pretty much that is it when it comes to the benefits. I might have skipped something, or if you want to add on to it, then you can. But let me talk about a lot of the cons that kind of made having multiple characters a thing. The big thing that changed is the daily task and the weekly task. Over in base PSO2, if you haven't played it, pretty much your base or your daily missions and your weekly missions are character bound. Each character have their own set of missions. So if you complete one character set, the other character will still have their own set. It is character locked. It is separate. But with New Genesis, these missions are account locked. When I say account locked, that means all of the characters in that account share that same thing. And you will see on the screen that I will show you these daily missions that I'm doing, and it is the same on my characters. It's same client or the same day, just different characters. So that is account lock, meaning that you can't really benefit Meseta gain or getting a bunch of mats and all that from having separate characters in New Genesis. In New Genesis, specifically in relations to that task, it is account locked. Moving on, someone talked about or brought up how if you have multiple characters, you can actually gather a bunch of different materials because it will be character locked. What I decided to do was pretty much send one of my new characters off into the cave or into the cocoon cave area, have them gather a bunch of rocks. When I did that, I decided to swap between 3 characters. One of them is brand new and they didn't explore that area. Another one of my characters, they were not new. They were my first character I sent to New Genesis, but they did not explore that area. And then the third one was pretty much a character that has already explored that area but decided to revisit it. And you'll see the footage playing right now. So my characters decided to go and check that area. It's on the same day. And you will see that they do not see any sort of mats whatsoever. They do not see any of the rocks that I gathered the first time around when I went down that path. So that means having multiple characters does not give you any sort of benefit in terms of farming for these mats. You would have to wait for the certain time period to end and refresh so you can gather these materials again. When it comes to point number 3, it's a simple one. It's talking about battle pass or battle power. Excuse me, not battle pass. Yeah, battle power, power level, whatever label you want to label it as. It will be different because there's a number of variables that will play into it. It depends on if you're using shared equipment. You could get the same number close to, depending on if you put a bunch of your skill points or if you're saving a few of them. There's a number of things that will play into your battle power, your combat power, whatever you call it. And I might make a separate video going further into that once I experiment and see how many points you get for doing this, and this. When it comes to skill points, this is more of a positive thing, but when it comes to skill points, it is account lock. So the way to get skill points, and I'll mention this once again in a separate video, when it comes to getting skill points, you will have to complete cocoons and towers, and once you complete them, you get these skill points, and it is account lock, meaning that all of your characters will have the same amount of points as long as you fulfill said requirements, and it doesn't matter what level your class is at. That's not how you get skill points. In base PSO2, the way to get skill points is to level up your characters, and every time they level up, they get 1 skill point. There were a couple client orders you have to do, and once you complete it, you get more skill points, but that's you doing it. And when you go through these different characters, most of the time it's not account lock. Most of the characters will have their own separate levels and whatnot. And when it comes to completing the client orders to get extra skill points, you would have to physically do them again on that particular character. So it was pretty much character locked, and yeah, it took a while to level up said characters and also get the certain stats or get a good chunk of skill points you would want to use on your skill tree. But in New Genesis, that is different. It is pretty much account locked as long as you complete these cocoons and towers. what's another point? In terms of, oh yeah, the big one that I need to talk about. When it comes to a new character, a new Genesis, they would have to go through story. You can't skip the prologue. That, there is an option for. But when it comes to you having all of the map unlocked, having to go through the story and whatnot, that pretty much is a thing. If you bring a new character, they have to go through all that. They have to actually go through the process of unlocking all the regions again. They would have to explore all the teleporters again, have to do this, and this. So it will be a tedious task to bring a character from its low level all the way up to the current level, which is at level 20. And not only that, you have to do the story quest missions, and some of them could eat up your money if you're not careful about it. But yeah, that's a giant con, and it's hard for me to talk about it without showing it, and it's kind of shown because one of my characters pretty much finished all of their stuff in terms of story and unlocking everything, but another one of my characters, you can see that they're running around and following the orange diamond icon doing story, and as you can see, their map isn't as finished because there's a lot of areas areas locked. And not only that, all of those teleporters and mag devices or mag region devices are not present on that character's map. So pretty much it's kind of reminding me of back then in old Japanese Southeast Asia PSO2, episode 1, 2, 3, and even in episode 4 era, where when you made a new character, you have to unlock everything on that character. The client orders, the skill points, the maps. Yes, you had to unlock the maps again. It was not account lock. The thing about global PSO2 is that they were able to account lock a lot of things and make sure that it wasn't that grind heavy compared to way back then. They pretty much implemented a lot of features and functions and systems from episode 4 and onwards. So once you have one of your characters complete all that, it's already unlocked. You don't need to worry about going through it all over again, but back then you had to actually do that. So pretty much that's what you have to do in New Genesis. You have to go through all this stuff over and over again depending on what character you bring over. So if it's a new character, they have to go through that beginning point from the town onwards in terms of stories, in terms of unlocking everything and finding everything all over again. Wish it was account lock, but hey, it is what it is. And I think that's most of the points that I want to cover. Talk about the skill points, the battle power, combat power, talked about the maps and how you had to go through everything, talked about the one thing someone brought up about if you have multiple characters and you can get a bunch of materials and stuff. That I tested out. That is not true. It is pretty much account locked. And I feel like I forget the other point that I mentioned. But that should be it for this video though. If I left something out, or if you want to add on to some of the stuff that I mentioned, then you can put it in the comments below. But pretty much when it comes to having multiple characters, it's not as grand. I'm not trying to say you shouldn't make a bunch of new characters. If you want to make a bunch of characters because you would want maybe one of each gender or race, or gender and race, or if you want to just do whatever, then go ahead and do it. I'm just stating some of the things that are present as of this moment. Also note that this is just for the moment. They might change this later, and I will most likely make a video talking about it, since once again, I love my characters and I want to show them, like, I want to give them attention, and I want to flesh them out and play on them a bit more compared to what I did back then in base PSO2. But that's just how I want to play the game and how I want to spoil these characters, because I do spoil almost all my characters in PSO2. That is it though. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, put it down below. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.